Hello, everybody that loves back to basics canning recipes. I just recently shared a back to basics, just how to teach yourself how to can using your water bath canner, especially when you don't have access to your own garden, you're not raising your own food, but food security is really important to you. You want to get in while the getting's good. You want to build up your own pantry stock, and some great ways to do that. Today's video is all about that same idea, but with respect to pressure canning. So I'll go over the basics of pressure canning, but I'm also going to share some great ways that you can practice where you are, teach yourself how to pressure can, sourcing meat. That's what we're focusing on today. Meat from either your grocer, looking for those 90% discount deals at the grocery store. I'll share with you where our meat's coming from and for today's video. And then we're going to go through the process of preparing the meat, getting it ready for canning, and then actually pressure canning it. So let's just dive right in. I love shopping at Gordon's. We don't get out there much. I usually go in there specifically looking for something. And then that's Gordon's Food Supply, I think it's called. Hopefully they're national. I think they are. And a spider in my... I just put this away and he found his way in there. Okay, anyway, I was saying... I'm always amazed by the deals I can find in there, and every single time I tell myself, Rachel, you got to remember to come here when you're looking for something. I found a score. These 10-pound rolls of, they're actually $81.19 beef, ground beef. Ground beef around here at Walmart, our local Meijer store, Kroger's is running like $6 a pound right now, and that's not for organic. This was $3.59 a pound. So I'm like to the slim pickings on my canned ground beef, and I know if you guys have been following us a long time, it's not Todd's favorite, but we sure still use it a lot for quick go-to meals, and I'm totally, don't cut towards yourself, Rachel, cut away from yourself. I am going to can this up, and I think I'm going to, in today's lesson, do it a slightly different way than I've done it before and see if we can't get a better texture. That's something people often complain about with ground beef is the texture. Flavor's still great. It still cooks up wonderfully, and it is an awesome thing to have on the shelf for food security. But if you're picky about that specific texture of your ground beef, we're going to see if we can't resolve that today. So I'm using my big roaster. You could do this on a stove pot. You don't have to do it in a roaster. It's just convenient for me that I can get all of this browned a little bit quicker using a larger surface area. And I'm just getting it all out of here. And we're going to brown this in our roaster and then move on to the next step. I'm not putting any salt, pepper, no seasonings. We're just going for straight ground beef. Okay, I got it turned up to about 350 degrees in my roaster, and we are just going to, I'm going to just work this over time to get it nice and browned up. And if you're new to canning or even the thought of canning, keep your eye out for one of these. I found, my mother-in-law gave me mine, but I've seen them many, many times at resale shops, vintage stores. You can really find them a lot of places. And I honestly, this is probably from the 80s, I guess. The old ones are far superior from the newer ones. With respect to, a lot of people complain that newer ones, they get a lot of burning and icky on the inside that they can't get out of their pans. And this one I have put it through the ringer and it holds up really well. So I'm just going to, I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of cutting it in chunks so it's easy to move around as it starts browning. And then we're going to move on and talk about chicken. But you can find great deals oftentimes on beef. I don't know about for how much longer, but keep your eye out. Check with your local supermarket. When do they put meats on sale? And pick yourself up some meat to practice pressure canning with. In my mind, if I could only pressure can one thing to start out with, it would be to teach myself to pressure can meat. All right, so we got it all chopped up, ready to start flipping and tossing. Now let's move on to what's over here, my chickens. So what I have here is similarly, I'm almost all out of my canned chicken. Now, while I grew these chickens, they are whole. Again, for folks that don't have their own source or they just want to practice, a whole chicken is one of the cheapest meat products that you can buy at the store. I know when I was on a really tight budget, sorry, that lighting is terrible. When I was on a tight budget as a new mom, we used a lot of whole chickens to make recipes really, really stretch, or my weekly budget really stretch. So you can do this as simple as just baking your chickens, boiling your chickens, however you like. But because I do want to make a broth later, and I don't really have a pot big enough to boil them all at the same time, I am going to just roast mine. So I just have some of my onions that were sprouting in the fridge, and we're just going to cut the ends off, and I'm just going to throw those in without the outer peels. Let's see if I can get that off. I'm going to leave my little bits on. Again, you do not have to use anything. You could just use your chickens, but I know I enjoy the flavor of at least just adding some onion to the pot. Onions in the pot. You could add celery, add carrots, or you could totally not add anything. I will put a touch of water at the bottom just to help the moisture level as these chickens cook. Now, if you bought a store-bought chicken, you're going to want to take it out of the bag and check the inside, because a lot of times they're sold with the giblet packet inside of it, and you don't want to accidentally bake that in while you're baking or boiling your chicken. But all we're trying to do here is get our chicken cooked. So I'm just taking my chicken. It's still a little bit frozen. That's okay. I'm putting it in the pan right on top of those onions. I'm similarly not salting or peppering my chicken because I want my chicken to be as versatile as possible, and I like to season my food as I cook. When it comes to things like chicken, I might want to use this for jambalaya or chicken pot pie, various different dishes. It makes excellent chicken salad, great quick go-to chicken tacos. Oh, we use our canned chicken probably once a week. And I find that while we eat a lot of our whole chickens, it's just my husband and I here. And we'll end up spatchcocking it and serving it one half one way and one half another way. And we do that even more infrequently than just cooking our chickens whole. Let me figure out how to get these birds in here. All right. Okay, so these are going to go into the oven. I'm going to just set my oven on roast. and pop them in here. And I don't know how long we'll roast them. I'm just gonna roast them till the temperature is ready. But that's not the point of today's video. Just to picture yourself grounding as much beef as you can get your hands on at a great deal. Cooking yourself up some chicken, again, as much as you can get your hands on for a good deal. You wouldn't want to do this necessarily like I have a whole freezer full of pasture-raised ground beef. I don't want to can that. I just don't. I would only do it on deal meat that I'm getting unless a significant electrical outage happened and we couldn't get our backup power source going and I needed to save my meat, then I might. But I hear that ground beef cooking, so I think it's time to stir that up a little bit. You don't want to add any liquid to your ground beef while it's cooking, because we're going to end up draining this fat off. So there's no point in adding any liquid to this right now. Okay, so just a quick update. I probably have 15-20 minutes tops. It's still a little pink on the inside. That is okay. I'm not trying to get this crispy done, just decently done. I guess you'd say medium well. So I'm going to give that the last probably 15 minutes or so. I've been in here just stirring it randomly to even out the cooking. One thing about a roaster is it doesn't necessarily cook super evenly. So you're gonna wanna just, if you have one, stir it from time to time. All right, but things I need to get going because I'm gonna be ready here soon. The chicken should be done in about 20 minutes. Got my jars here. You're gonna wanna, because I'm doing hot packing, I need my jars heated back up. And this will allow for sterilization too. All right, so those are just gonna heat and come up, sterilize for this last little bit. I have 2 pots out. I'm gonna get these filled with water, get those heating on the stove, get my canner water in, so as I'm canning up the hot, I can turn the canner on, bring that up to temperature. So we're doing hot packing today. In our water bath video, we did cold packing. So right, it was cold products going in cold jars, going in a cold canner. Today we're doing the opposite, hot products going in hot jars into a hot canner. So you just always want to do one or the other. So let me get these filled, get these warmed up, and I'll see you guys back when it's time to start canning. Okay, let's talk about how much water goes into a pressure canner. I don't have this on yet, but my finger is just 1.5 inches. I always measure. My fingers are small, so 1 digit is 1 inch and a little bit over. 1.5 inches to 2 inches is all you need for water in your pressure canner. Don't go over that. Please just follow your pressure canner's instructions. Now moving on over here, I have my water heating up. This one is going to be for my beef broth. What I'm doing, choosing to do this time, totally not necessary. So you can just use plain water. I am adding some beef bouillon base to this and making like a faux beef broth. Well, it really will be beef broth. Just to give that beef a little bit better flavor and hopefully make it Todd approved after it's canned. So it's just going to be a really light beef broth, nothing too heavy. But again, for just getting practice under your belt, you do not need this step. You can just use plain water. And I'm just going to set these on simmer so that they're warm when it comes time to canning. Okay, those chickens look almost done. You guys ready to can some ground beef? Alrighty, got all my hot jars. Woo. Canner is going. we're going to start filling up our jars. And there is a method by which it's called packing a jar. And packing a jar can mean a lot of things. Firmly pack, loosely pack. For ground beef, it's loosely pack. You're just tapping it down basically. So we're going to 1 inch of headspace, and then we'll fill all the air voids with our broth. Or your water, whatever you're using. And now while I'm sitting here doing this, I want to tell you about a couple other things, which is probably one of the reasons Todd doesn't like my ground beef too, because I normally do a method called raw packing. So you just put raw ground beef in a jar and it cooks while it pressure cans. And I do that primarily. I don't think I've ever just cooked plain ground beef and canned it before. Normally when I do this, here's another idea. You could season this at this time while you're cooking it and make like taco meat. That's my favorite. My favorite is to have shelf-ready taco meat that you can just grab, heat up on the stove, and you're ready for dinner. My absolute favorite way to can ground beef. But I want to just teach you the basics. Don't get overwhelmed. Let's just, because what I can do now if I want tacos is I can just throw this in my pot with the broth and all and add my taco seasoning, and it's really just as simple. So this will just add a little bit more versatility to my pantry shelves, and then I can use this for lots of different recipes. So we started out with right around 20 pounds of ground beef, so that'll give you an idea. And when we end up filling all our jars, how many jars did we get? Okay, we ended up with 21 pints, not bad. So I just pulled my broth off the stove and we are filling these jars up. So you're gonna wanna just do a ladle at a time. Use some type of debubbler tool. I'm using a big fat chopstick. Help that broth get into the air gaps between your meat or your water, whatever you're using. And we're just going to 1 inch of headspace, guys. Nice. Look at that. That's gonna be some yummy, yummy ground beef. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of these jars filled, and we're gonna wipe our lids or the rims of our jars, because I know I did get some little grease splatters on there from filling up my jars. And any food particles on the rims of your jars could lead to your seals not sealing tight or failing on you. So better to just take your time and get those nice and clean. All right, I just have a cloth with some vinegar on it. We're wiping the rims of our jars really good. And then we'll seal them up and get them in our canner that is back there behind me, just boiling and boiling. These jars are nice and hot. So I went over this in my last video. Something that you often hear is a term called finger tight. I'll show you what finger tight is. Finger tight is you put your ring gun, fling it as good as, this is how I taught myself anyway, fling it till it doesn't turn anymore, and then just go finger tight. That's it. Till your fingers can't naturally turn it anymore. All right, I got one row in. My canner can double stack jars. So I'm just putting that in there so I can stack the next row. All right, that's the last jar going in. So our next step is just to seal the canner. Now I have an all-American canner, so it is metal on metal, no rubber gasket. So I keep this nice and oiled. But if you just have a Presto rubber gasket style canner, you just pop your lid on. Make sure the seal's nice and good. I have to do a couple extra maneuvers because of mine style, just to make sure it's nice and even. Ouch, hot. And now we're gonna come back together when we talk about venting. And what is venting and how long do you vent it for? Don't put your weighted gauge on there right now, whether you have the jiggler or the weight, don't put that on yet. Trying to see, yep. So you guys can see the steam. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me see if I hold my hot pad behind it. It's not helping. But you can hear it, and it's steaming. And it'll get really forceful. Once that starts happening, set your timer for 10 minutes, okay? I can hear it more. Can you hear it? So much noise going on. I had to get my other canner out because I did not have enough room in that one. So put some really hot water in. It's not quite boiling yet, but that's okay. It's still hot to hot or warm to warm. And got 5 pounds of ground beef in there. And then I had extra beef broth, so I'm going to go ahead and can that up. All right, don't those look good? While that cans, that'll give my chicken time to cool off so that when the next round of canning's ready, I'll be ready to can my chicken. 5 more minutes and then we'll talk about how to bring it up to pressure and then what you need to watch for. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. So I have to can mine at 10 pounds of pressure. So I find my little 10. With a jiggler, you don't have to do that. Put it on. Now I'm watching for this pressure gauge to come up to 10 pounds. Okay, hear that sound? So I know I can walk away, and when I hear that sound, I'm at my pressure. So I'm coming right up to 10 pounds of pressure, just shy. I'm gonna go ahead and turn down my eye. This is something that you're just gonna learn over time. For this canner on this eye, I can set it to three on my dial and it'll hold pressure. This canner on that eye, it's like between 1 and 2 to hold pressure. So let me bring it back up. It's just dropping a little bit too much. Now this one, I just set the timer. I got about 7 minutes left on this vent. Then we'll put the jiggler on. So depending on what equipment you have, you're just gonna learn it over time. Don't be scared of it. Today's canners are built in with all kinds of safety mechanisms. They have relief valves. They have their little things to let you know when it's going crazy. And you'll get super comfortable with it. Don't let it scare you. Oh, I forgot to mention, that now's when I start my timer of canning time. So for ground beef, pints, 75 minutes. Oh, I've got to work around. Start. Okay, 75 minutes set for that one. This one is still venting, so I'll use the kitchen microwave timer for that one. I'll point this out on the Presto because I'm sure most brand new canners are going to start with this canner. See, oh, it just did it. Don't let that scare you. That's what it's building up pressure and it's locking that seal. So that I knew that was about to happen, so I wanted to show you guys that. Okay, my hands are covered in chicken, but timer's done. All you do is turn the eye off, and we're gonna let this sit and come down to 0 pounds of pressure naturally. Do not be tempted to release your pressure manually by releasing your pressure gauge. Let me turn this off. Because that's how you get siphoning in your jars and things like that. We just want it to come down naturally. Now this one's 10 minutes behind, so I need to go 10 more minutes on that canner. See you guys back when it's time to take the jars out. Okay, my pressure is down. Time to take off the lids. So when you take off your lids, take them off away from you. I'll show you what I mean by that. You don't want all this steam to come flying in your face because it is hot. So I open it up away from myself. Okay, there we go. Yummy, yummy ground beef. If there's any water on top like this one has, just leave it alone. It'll naturally dry as it cools off. All right, how about that? That is a lot of ground beef. I have my chicken over here. It is canned and ready to go. All I did was deboned it, put water in it, 1 inch of head space. I need to refill my canner because after you pressure can, you will lose some water. So I'll put some cold water in there. These are just warm. They're not hot. And off camera, guys, this, if you're brave enough, let's keep it going. All of those, you hear the popping? Nice. All of those carcasses that I pulled the bones off, I crushed them, broke all the bones apart, and filled up my roasting pan with lots of veggies, onions, bay leaves. I had a little bag of green beans, some onions, some celery, carrots, some peppercorns. I'm gonna put that back in the oven and we're gonna just go one more round and get our chicken broth done. So thanks guys. I hope this helps you as you are just entering the canning world and you're a little nervous about pressure canning. Hopefully this shared with you that nothing to be afraid of, some things to consider, some ways to get going, and I wish you all the best in your canning adventures. Talk to you later, and you'll catch me back here in the kitchen, I'm sure, soon. Thanks, guys.